very precariously lit Sunday evening in my house, but it is the 10th of March, which means that at the end of this week coming, it is going to be the 17th of March, and that's Patrick's Day. It is Ireland's national holiday, and I am going to try my best to live as Irishly as possible this week while I live in a different country. So I'm going to be reading only Irish books. I'm going to try my best to find some Irish snacks or make some like Irish foods to have for dinner. Let's see how we get going. The book that I'm going to start this week off with is one that I am about halfway through, I would say, and that is Spirit Level by Rachel Craven. I am genuinely enjoying this. This book has blown me away in ways that I didn't expect it to do so. It is about a young man named Danny who is 24, and he and his best friend Nudge are in a car accident coming home from a night out one night. Nudge is killed in the car crash, but Danny survives, and he realizes that when he is a little bit drunk, when he's a little bit tipsy, he can actually speak to Nudge's ghost. He can see him like fully formed in front of him, but he's the only person who can see him. From this, the two of them can kind of deduce that Nudge has unfinished business. So they are kind of going around Dublin at the moment to try and find answers as to why Danny is the only person who can see Nudge, and how it is that he can correspond with him and that he can interact with him, and also try and figure out what it is that is keeping some of Nudge's spirit here on Earth and why he hasn't crossed over to the other side yet. So that's book one. I don't know where book 2 and 3 is going to take me. I'm hopeful that I'm going to get 3 books done by the end of this week, but I don't know what they're going to be and where we're going to go from here. I have got space for an audiobook, so I'm going to try and get an audiobook read by the time I'm at work tomorrow morning. I should hopefully have decided what that's going to be, but I'll take you with me once I figured out what it's going to be. The last time that you saw me was a little over 36 hours ago, and things have rapidly changed. I have new glasses. They arrived yesterday. I got them fitted properly yesterday afternoon after a walk. They are a little bit too big, but they kind of give me Edna Mode vibes. And also I have new hair. I just dyed my hair about an hour or two ago. I'm waiting for it to settle a little bit more before I can go and blow dry it and style it a little. I almost have a book to tell you about. I am almost finished with Spirit Level by Rachel Craven. It is here. I went as far as page 282 of 320 last night before I lost the battle against sleep. And I am so sure that I'm going to get those 40 odd pages read before anything else happens this evening. And I know where I want to go next. It's a little bit different to what I usually read. But I have got a copy of Savage Her Reply by Deirdre Sullivan on my TBR with Donkey's Years. I say Donkey's Years 4 years. It came out in 2020, just around the time of the pandemic. Savage Her Reply is about Aoife, who is the stepmother in the mythological story of the Children of Lear. And in the story, she curses 4 children, her husband's children, to turn into swans for 900 years. And for 300 years, every 300 years, they have to go to a different lake across Ireland. I loved that story when I was a child, particularly because there was a person called Aoife in it. But I'm not a huge fan of A, fantastical stories, and B, villain origin stories. I'm really interested to see if Aoife's going to have a kind of redemption arc, because there's not really a whole lot that you can forgive if you're turning 4 children into swans for almost 1,000 years. But I'm going to give it a try. As for the gifts that bind us, yesterday I went on a silly little walk for my silly little mental health after work, and I picked the audiobook up, and I am invested. I'm going to go for another little walk later on because I do need to go and actually buy what the Germans call an Übergangsjacke, which is basically like a transitional jacket from the heavy clothes of winter, but you're not quite ready for like the thin paper fabric of summer. I need something that's going to tide me over for the rest of March, for April, and possibly from May as well, because the only thing that I have is this massive jacket from Uniqlo that's basically like a duvet. It's so warm. Or my denim jacket, which is a little bit too cold for this time of year. I've got about a half an hour left before I can clock out from work. After that, I'm going to put my workout gear back on. I'm going to put my headphones back in, and we are going to go to a local shopping centre. We're going to look for an Übergangsjacke, and we will just hope for the best that we find one. I'm really enjoying the book so far. It's, again, slightly different to what I would usually read. It's quite a fantastical story. It's got fantastical elements to it, but it is also quite rooted in our world. There's very much our world problems, such as friendships that are going sour, or a relationship that is not going in the way that you think it's going to go. And there's also quite a lot of representation in this book. One of the characters wears a hearing aid. One of the characters is kind of questioning their sexuality and is playing around with the idea of what pronouns do I want people to associate with me, and is changing their name legally. One of the other very minor characters in this book is a trans woman and is the front woman of a band that everybody in the book goes to see. And I'm really interested to see how that is going to be developed further and how that is going to be presented further to us. But I trust Caroline with how she's going to present this to me. I'm really excited to see where we're going to go. Thankfully, my hair seems to have settled a little bit more into the colour and it doesn't look pitch black as night. It is Friday, and I haven't updated you since I think Tuesday morning, and that is on the week being incredibly busy up until then. I have been reading, I have been keeping going with the books. With Saboteur Reply, I am on 28% of the book, and it is incredible. It is so well written, the prose flows so beautifully, and I already knew to expect that from Deirdre Sullivan. I've read a couple of her contemporary books already. I have already read Needlework, which was one of the best books I had read in the year that I had read it. And I've also read Perfectly Preventable Deaths, which again, a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I was having a good time with it. So I knew that the writing here would be just phenomenal work. I was not incorrect. It is quite heavy on the mythology. Obviously, it's a mythology book. And I'm really enjoying the dynamic between Aoife and her sisters, Alva, and I can't remember what her other sister's name is, but it also does start with an A. So I've just gotten to the part of the story where Aoife's sister Alva has passed away, and she passed away during childbirth, and Lear marries Aoife to keep their family kind of together because they now has 4 children to take care of. Fionnuala, A, Con, and Fiachra. They are the 4 children, 2 sets of twins. And I'm so interested to see where the rest of the story is going to go because I know how the story goes. I know that Aoife doesn't particularly see herself as a part of the family, and she has a little bit of resentment towards the children, and I'm getting a vibe from this book. In the mythology, Aoife was resentful because Lear loved her sister more than he loved her, whereas I'm getting the feeling that in this book, the resentment is actually towards the children because they killed her sister. I'm so interested to see if that's the thread that's going to be unraveled here. I'm really intrigued by this book. Another one that is completely out of my roadhouse, I am about halfway through The Gifts That Bind Us. And I always keep saying The Gifts That Bind, so if I leave out the us, that's on me not having finished my coffee. I am so invested in this book. It has phenomenally fantastic representation in it. You've got a character who wears hearing aids. You've got a character who is trans. You've got a character who is questioning their gender identity and has just changed their name legally. I'm genuinely invested in this book. I do need to get away from reading it at work. I have been listening to the audiobook a little bit while I'm at work, and that's counterproductive. I feel like when I'm listening to the audiobook at work, I'm getting a little bit too invested in what's happening in the screen, and I'm not paying so much attention to what's happening in my ears, which I need to kind of balance out a little bit better. So what I think I'm going to do is, I've got a really big day of sprints ahead of me. I have got some sprints with Brittany starting at, I think, about 1 o'clock my time, which is 3 hours from now. I've also got my own sprints this evening at 6. And I am going to get as much of these books finished as I can. And then I don't know where I'm going to go. I've got a couple of other options. I have got Whatever Happened to Bertie Troy by Rachel English. I've got the physical copy of that as an ARC. I have got a digital ARC of My Father's House by Joseph O'Connor. And I'm really interested to try his stuff out. He's a really prolific historical fiction writer in Ireland. And I've tried none of his books. But his sister was Sinead O'Connor.
And I'm so intrigued to see what kind of talent is like spread across the family. One of them being a hugely successful singer songwriter, the other one being a really renowned historical fiction writer. And I know that My Father's House is set in Italy during 1943, so it's in the midst of World War II. I'm intrigued by it. I have got options, I just don't know where I'm going to go with them. By the way, those of you who were worried and concerned that you didn't get a jacket update, jacket update. And it killed. We're going to do the slow turn so you can see it from all angles. It came from Uniqlo, which is a Japanese company. And they've got a couple of stores around Germany, but they've got like 4 or 5 of them in Berlin. So yesterday after work, I went to Alexanderplatz, one of the central squares in Berlin. They have got a massive Uniqlo shop. And I dropped €80 on this bad boy. It's not as warm as it looks. It does look a little bit kind of padded, but it's super light. And I've got another coat from them. I've got a really big winter coat from them that has seen me through a Berlin winter, and I have a feeling it's going to see me through another few Berlin winters. And I knew that when I had good quality, when I had good insulation, I knew that I could trust Uniqlo. So, not SponseCon, I got a new jacket. It is Sunday. It is the last day of this vlog. It is Patrick's Day, and we've got a lot to update you on. I finished Savage Her Reply this morning before I got out of bed, and it was phenomenal. It was so much better than I think I was expecting it to be, mainly because I went into it with very low expectations of, oh, it's kind of a fantasy book, it's a mythology book. I don't read those a lot. I don't enjoy those a lot. I was blown away by it. I think my idea that I enjoy mythology if it's my own culture is correct. So, on to the next one. Whatever happened to Birdie Troy? If you enjoyed Daisy Jones and the Six, I think this is going to be the vibe for you, because this is about Birdie Troy, the front woman of a band named The Diamonds, who disappears after their first single comes out. So that is going to be what I'm going to be reading for the day. But also, because it is Patrick's Day, I'm going to be wearing my green jumper. I am going to make a spice bag for dinner, and I am going to cook soda bread at some stage over the day, and I will take you with me to show you what that looks like. I know I said I was wearing a different green. Port one of the day, I'm going to make soda bread. And the difference between this and regular bread is that regular bread will rise with yeast, whereas soda bread rises with baking soda or bicarbonate of soda, or however you want to describe it. You need 170 grams each of plain white flour, and you need 170 grams of wholemeal flour or brown flour. Then you need about a half a teaspoon of baking soda and another half a teaspoon of salt, and about 300 milliliters of buttermilk. the thing about this bread is that you don't need to leave it for half an hour to prove. You don't need to leave it in like a darkened room with a wet tea cloth over it. Done. She's done. The German has made a point of, can you just make bread rolls out of it? Can you just make baguettes out of it? Can you do XYZ with it? You can do whatever you want with it. I usually just leave it on the baking tray like this, or I will put it into a bread tin, but you always score the top of it, so just lightly put a couple of lines in with a sharp knife, and then you leave it in an oven. I put it at 200 degrees, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, and you leave it cook for 30 minutes, and then you come back and you've got bread. The way that you test whether or not this is done is you hit the bottom of it, and if it sounds hollow, then you're good to go. Now that the bread is cooling and we're waiting for the second one, we're actually going to start already on cooking the second dish of the day, a spice bag. I'm going to be honest, I do not know what spices go into a spice bag. I have a feeling it's something like Chinese spice, cumin, coriander. We're looking at the Asian spices here. It is usually made in a Chinese takeaway in Ireland, and it has like exploded in popularity. I think they started out in Dublin, but now they are basically available right across the country, and they're huge as like a Friday evening treat or drunk food when you come out of the club. It's usually made with breaded chicken, but we're gonna do it with breaded pork because we couldn't find chicken cutlets. Also, you put in some chips or fries. You put in some red peppers, green peppers, yellow peppers, whatever color you want to put in, some onions, you fry it all up together and you serve it in a bag. Now you can usually serve it in like a brown paper bag that you would get in a chipper or a takeaway, but we don't have brown bags. We only have these white ones, which will have to suffice. And because I find a spice bag kind of dry, I'm also going to absolutely drown it in curry sauce.
We'll end as we started. Poorly lit, on the chair, with some tea. It's the end of Patrick's Day. I think I've had a fairly successful day. I have finished 2 books. I think I've had a very successful week. I set out to be a little bit more Irish. I think I've done that. I actually ate Irish food for the first time in God knows how long. I made a spice bag. I made soda bread. I now have like a loaf of bread that I can use for the next couple of days for like snacks or breakfast or dinner or whatever. I think I've done fairly okay with this. I think I have done better than I intended to. I didn't think that I would finish 2 entire books, especially if there was one that I was only going to be starting. I've also started 2 other books, the first of those being Whatever Happened to Bertie Troy by Rachel English, and it is genuinely intriguing me. It genuinely is. It's very much like Daisy Jones and the Six, which I did say this morning. It gives a kind of a Daisy Jones and the Six vibe. And the second book that I have started is The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan, and this one gives me chaos vibes. This gives me like people in their late 20s getting married, not sure who they are in the world still trying to figure out who they are. I'm invested in this book. I listened to it while I went out for a walk earlier on, and I swear to you, it went so quickly. The chapters also seem really short. I was on maybe chapter 25 or 26 after an hour's walking around at 2 times speed. So I'm pretty hopeful that I'm actually going to finish that book tomorrow because I've only got about 3 or so hours left of the audiobook, and it is interesting enough that I'm going to be listening to it at my work desk. I think overall, good success of the week. Thank you for coming along with me to see how Irish I could be in the stretch of about 7 days. If you've watched this entire vlog and you'd love to leave me something but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then I would just love you to leave me a shamrock emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Nah, get on out of here.